Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a story of a young woman by the name of Brionna Taylor. Right now, there is a petition on change.org for this young woman. Basically, she is the victim of something very, very tragic. First of all, let me explain that she was an EMT worker. Okay. She was an EMT worker. And right on the heels of the arrest of the slaying officers of Ahmaud Arbery, there's news of another Black life lost. And that is the life of Brionna Taylor. She is an EMT worker and an essential worker during the pandemic. Now, what happened to her is she was killed during a drug raid on her home. Okay. The police allegedly had the wrong house, and the suspect was already in custody. Despite all of that, Brionna is gone. And so they are, the people of change.org, are seeking justice in this case. Now, this young woman, she lost her life senselessly. And as the narrative always goes, there is always this need to try to make the victim to be a criminal. Now, even in the case of Ahmaud, a lot of things from his past are being brought up to try to connect to what happened to him a few months back. Now, although he had a past that was not favorable at all, a lot of people just don't know how to separate something he did in high school, the fact that he was inside of the vacant building, the fact that he did commit another shoplifting crime, I believe it was. Don't quote me on that, but these were the things that he was guilty of in the past. A lot of people don't know how to separate and say, okay, at the moment that he was jogging down the street, was he in process or in the process of committing a crime? So since you don't have people who know how to make that separation to say, okay, well, in this case, at that moment, he shouldn't have been shot and killed. Because you don't have people who know how to make that separation, they are drawing a clear separation here in the case of Brionna. A clear separation, okay? 1 month ago, a division of the Louisville Police Department performed an illegal, unannounced drug raid on her home. Okay. Not a single officer announced themselves before ramming down her door and firing 22 shots, shooting and killing Brionna. They shot her 8 times. Not only were the officers at the wrong house, but the man that they were looking for had already been arrested earlier that day. So that tells me that there was a grave lack of communication within the department. So they performed this raid even though the man had already been arrested earlier that day. Now, some will argue and say, well, mistakes happen. But when the mistake causes property damage, loss of life, a young woman to be cut down so senselessly, someone who actually worked in the system, she was an EMT worker. So she worked to help save lives, but she, in return, lost her life. Now they're asking for charges to be filed. The family is seeking damages for her wrongful death, and the Kentucky governor has yet to speak on the situation. This was carried out over a month ago, and for weeks, listen to this. This is something that we see happening time and time again in this country. For weeks, the city treated Brionna like she was a criminal, calling her a suspect before finally admitting that she was an innocent, crimeless victim. She had no drugs. She committed no crime. And yet she's dead. And so I just wanted to shed some light on this particular topic, which is going to lead me into another topic that I want to talk about in another video. A topic of our perception of our existence here in this country and in other regions around the world. Our perception. Some people have the wrong perception about things. These occurrences have been happening for a long time. What happened to both Ahmaud Arbery and Brionna Taylor is the same story over and over again, but with different names. That is what has happened. The same story over and over again, but with different names. And when it happens to our young men, we are all heartbroken, terribly heartbroken. But when it happens to our young women, you say to yourself, what is the excuse for taking a young woman down, especially an EMT worker sitting in her own home, not even aware that the door is about to be pounded in and that she's about to lose her life and that no one is going to pay for it. That is going to be brushed off. Oh, my bad. We made another mistake. Yet we don't see and hear of these types of things happening in other communities. Not saying that they have not happened before, because they have, but at the rate that they happen in the so-called Black community is appalling. And yet again, like I said, there is an explanation for this that I will talk about later. This particular story is just really, really, truly sad. This young woman she was someone, like I said, who worked in the system to help save lives. She was a young woman. Her life is gone. And it's quite possible that no one will be held accountable. Now, that is what the petition on change.org is seeking to do, is to make sure that this is something that is dealt with fairly and that someone does pay for this crime. But I don't think anyone is holding their breath on that, because in many cases we have seen some type of justification for these things, and we all know who's doing it, who's behind it, and basically that we just have to sit and watch and wait and see. There's never a guarantee, but we have to watch, wait, and see if someone will be held accountable for taking this young woman's life. This is yet another sad chapter in the lives of Black America. Another sad chapter. And we and others have talked about what is truly happening on so many occasions. So many occasions, but it tends to fall on deaf ears in all directions. Not just when we're addressing our people on why these things happening, but also when we are trying to get the attention, or not necessarily trying to get the attention, but pointing out to those who try to pretend like things are equal, fair, and balanced in this country, trying to get them to understand that no, it is not. It's like everything is falling on deaf ears. But I wanted to talk about this story. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, because what can be said about a young woman losing her life so senselessly? What can be said about that? Okay, I'm starting to get a knock on my door, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video. With that, I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.